20 seconds late now.
Okay, let's go then. So, thank you for coming. So, so here's the program for these 45 minutes. So I'm a Debian developer since 2010. I've always been interested in hosting solutions. I created a bunch of mine. I have a hosting business. So I'm a French guy living in China. I've been doing the packaging of OpenStack since the beginning. So with Folsom. So Folsom was the ABCD fifth release. Now it's growing and growing, so I manage more than 150 packages. Most of the Python dependencies that I package are imported in Ubuntu. And I'm one of the lucky few who are paid to do packaging work in Debian, so I'm very happy of what I do. So, okay, let's start about an update on OpenStack. So I made 2 talks on the last DebConf, so I won't repeat myself. If you want to understand what OpenStack is for, you can have a look in the archive and watch the videos. Today I just want to give you a quick update on what are the new features in OpenStack. So the first bad news is that I've packaged Zen API for Wheezy. It's in Wheezy, but we had to remove it because there was some RC bugs. It didn't support the latest versions of OCaml, and so what happened is that Citrix made a fork of their Red Hat-based Zen API solution, and they were not able to continue using their version 2.0 to provide Debian support. So then they know it's an unfortunate situation. They're working on it. Unfortunately, it's looking like we are going to miss Jessie. So there will not be any Zen API support in Jessie. So no Zen support for OpenStack in Jessie. The second bad news is that it's going to be difficult for anyone that runs SX in Wheezy to upgrade to the version which is going to be in Jessie, because it's not supported upstream to upgrade from one version and then go 4 version up. So you'll pretty much will be on your own, and it's not looking like upstream wants to address that, because everyone in the cloud just upgrades from every release every 6 months. So if you want to do that, I keep on the GPL host repository all the versions of OpenStack, so you can go from SX, then Grizzly, Havana, Icehouse. So you can upgrade from one to the next. That is still possible. So nobody in production would do that, and Ubuntu people pretended that they would do the work, but they didn't. So.
No. I mean, you are able to do upgrades from
SX to Icehouse directly?
Not directly. You have to move through, but you can go from.
Yes, but what has been said at the beginning 2 years ago was that we could do it, and 2 years later it's not possible.
Well, we've made it so you can skip H. You can go G to H via the Juju charms if you use the charms for your upgrade.
Okay.
Yeah, going from the there's so much change.
Yes, correct. And as well, there's some changes. Like if you were using Nova Volume before, now it's Cinder. If you were using Nova Network, now you use Neutron. So anyway, if there are ways to convert your database from one to another, you still have to change project, and then the upgrade will be complicated anyway. Now that was for the bad parts, and now for the more interesting things. There's new projects that are currently in preparation in OpenStack, and I packaged those who I thought were up to speed. So there's Trove, which is a database as a service. So you use an API, and then poof, you have a database that you can use. Designate is DNS as a service, and Ironic is bare metal as a service, so that you can provision hardware on demand and then just use the dedicated hardware as if it was a virtual machine. And there's OOO, which is OpenStack on OpenStack, and Tuskar. So all of these projects are very, very new, except Trove, which I think may be in a way production ready. The last three are currently in seed and testing, but I'm planning to ask for removal from stable, because it's going to be difficult for me to do security support. So if you want to use it now in Jessie, it's possible, but don't expect to find it in Jessie. Also,
If you have a volunteer to keep up the Ironic packages, would you keep them?
Yes.
Okay.
But will there be support for 3 years of security support in Debian?
I was asking about the Ironic packages. I will see if I can make that happen.
Okay. So I also built, like a year ago, a colleague of mine said, okay, why don't you do a script to build Debian images in the cloud? So I started to do that just like that, and then finally it became OpenStack Debian images, which is a package you can download. So I tried to design it very small so that it's easy to hack. So it's like 400 lines of shell script, which has hooks that you can get into. And then I use that to provide the official Debian images on the HP cloud. Though these would work on any KVM-based OpenStack cloud. So my plan is also to have it used together with the CD creation. So that would be Steve McIntyre. He said to me that he will try to add the call of that OpenStack Debian images script inside the process of creating Debian images. So the goal would be to have the QCO image for the cloud released at the same time as the CD images. So everything works well in that, except that there's in OpenStack you need to log at the same time on the serial console TTYS0 and the TTY normal physical console. There's been a bug since 2005 with a patch attached 1 year later, since 2006, enabling logging on both consoles at the same time. So I patched sys5 init to have booklogd support that. So that is currently in seed since 4 days. And with the help of the release team, I hope they will accept that patch. Maybe it will reach Wheezy sometime. I'm not sure about that. But I'll try. Okay, so new features. Nova has support for RBD, sorry. So RBD is who knows Ceph? Anyone? Okay, there's a few persons. So Ceph is distributed storage, so that you install it on many servers. Then it provides object storage and block storage. That's, according to many people, including myself, one of the smartest way to provide storage for an OpenStack cloud. So Nova, which is OpenStack Compute, has lost some of the patches that were needed for supporting Ceph, and since Havana, I maintain them on top of the Debian packages for Nova. So this is still in the packages for Icehouse that are currently in Jessie. And currently we can with Icehouse we can stream directly from Ceph cluster. You can stream directly the image without going through Cinder volume, so that speeds up a lot the access to it. We have per tenant quota, because like before we could set up global quota saying that a tenant would have that many instances with that many RAM, etc. So now we have per tenant quota. We have Docker support. One very nice thing is that we have aggregate filters, meaning that if you have this type of compute nodes with this type of hardware, this type of SSD or SATA hard drive or whatever, now you can filter and say, I want to run this little machine on that type of compute nodes. Yes, so I'm comparing all the new features here are from 2 releases ago, okay? So that's from Grizzly. That's where, because my last talk was like a year ago, so that's why it's from that. So in Grizzly we had cells, but they were not really usable. Now it's becoming nice and useful. So a cell is a group of compute nodes, so that if you have very large deployments with like thousands of nodes, it's now possible to divide them in cells so that you have a distributed workload. Horizon now supports a lot more projects, so it supports heat. Heat is those auto-scaling features, so that you say when my web server has that many amount of requests, then I want to have more virtual machines. So there's many ways to say, to tell when you need more VMs. So it's up to you to do it. So you write that in a heat template. So Horizon has support for heat, for Stelometer, which does the metering in an OpenStack cloud. There's Trove, which is database as a service that you can also manage in Horizon. And on the Neutron side, so Neutron does the network. There's a lot of new features like VPN as a service, firewall as a service, load balancer as a service. So the firewall as a service is not security groups, okay? It's inside your own little LAN that you run in the cloud. Load balancer as a service is kind of HA proxy as a service, so that you don't have to run HA in your own instance. You would run it on the cloud itself. It would do that for you. And there's some interesting things that happened in the network core, I'd say. So a year ago, the only solutions we had to provision a cloud without some specific hardware was to use GRE tunnels. So GRE tunnel is made between all the compute nodes. So like if you have 10 compute nodes, what happens is that you would have a mesh of tunnels between all compute nodes. It's quite CPU intensive, and if you have a lot of network activity, then it's kind of hard for the hardware to keep up. So we have a new feature which is there since the Linux 3.12 and really usable since 3.13 and on, which is VXLAN. So VXLAN is, you take a packet and you had roughly 50 byte header that's supported by the kernel itself, and in there you have the VLAN information. So it's quite new even in the kernel, and it's really nice because you don't have all the overhead that you would have with GRE tunnel. So the thing is that your hardware needs to support the size of the packet plus these 50 bytes. So if you use jumbo packets of 9Ks, it has to be 9K plus these 50 bytes. So when you buy some hardware, you have to make sure you have the feature. Most recent hardware like Cisco and such have it. So for Stelometer, now we have alarming, so that it can tell of issues you have in your own cloud. Glance has multiple location capabilities for images, and it has a Cinder backend so that you can store an image on a Cinder volume. Another thing is that I worked on the documentation. So what you see in docs.openstack.org is the official documentation plus some patches that I added for OpenStack in Debian. I don't maintain much the wiki, though there's may be some information you may find interesting over there. The process in OpenStack is very open, so if you want to contribute to the documentation, I very welcome you to do so. Checking the time. Okay. Yeah, so I already explained what Ceph is. As I said, I continue to backport to take the patches from Dimitri, who is in the room, who contributes the backports of the patches for Ceph in Nova. So it should still be working even though it's not supported upstream. This year Red Hat bought Intank, so we have a good hope that it's going to be maintained in a much better way, and meaning upstream with some testing in the gate of OpenStack, so that we make sure it's always there in the stable upstream release. So we have already support in DevStack. So DevStack is a huge, not so, how can I put it in nice words? It's a bit not so clean shell script that would set up your OpenStack locally, and it's used by what we call the gate in OpenStack. So the gate will check that your patch doesn't break the rest of OpenStack.
For development and testing only.
Thank you. Yeah, that's for development and testing. So we have now Ceph support in DevStack, which was the first step, so that DevStack is able to deploy Ceph. And the next step is going to be adding Ceph functional testing in DevStack. Once we have that, then the world is great, the sun is shining, and Ceph will be supported forever in OpenStack.
Not be broken by every second.
Yeah, and not broken. Yeah, that's the point. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I should have replaced the interrogation point by your real name. I'm sorry. Yeah, so we have solved as well the problem with our BD. BD, I do it. Support in QEMU. So hopefully that problem is solved for Jessie. So RBD is how to say the R? I can never say. Yeah, thank you. So hopefully QEMU has the support for it in Jessie. So I've been running the Tempest functional testing in OpenStack for about a year. So to prove that the packages are working correctly. So I'd like to thank a lot all the people from Innovance, especially Emilien, who helped me a lot to do all these testings, and others. So what we have in Wheezy, in my Wheezy backport repository, is tested. I hope to be able to test it for Jessie before the freeze, to make sure that everything's working as expected. It should be roughly the same because it's the same packages. So I do not expect big surprises. So the security support for SX has been kind of sloppy. I'm really not proud of what I did in Wheezy, though there's a consensus that it was not really usable for a public cloud provider, and for private use I don't think you were affected by any of the CVEs that were reported. So it's kind of fine, but I don't want this to happen again for the Jessie release. The good news is that Red Hat announced 3-year support for security of Icehouse, so they will produce patches for it. I hope to be able to maintain these for the life of Jessie. but I'm not 100% sure people will use Jessie and Icehouse. So it's up to you to tell me if you think you will use that. So I very much welcome your comments and feedback about it. So if everybody tells me no, I won't use what's in Jessie, I will use the latest version of OpenStack all the time, then it's not worth the trouble and I can ask removal. So you tell me, okay? There's a colleague of mine who told me, oh, you did so many Python packaging, so you should share. And you must know a lot about it. So the thing is, I don't pretend that I know so much about Python packaging, even if I do a lot. I think that people like Barry or Piotr in this room must know a lot more than I do. But I think we don't do enough packaging experience sharing in Debian. And I think it's probably one of the things that Debian people are the most interested about, which is why I wanted to share with you the way I do. So I hope that if you think I'm not doing right, then you tell me, and if you are doing it another way which you think is more efficient, then please tell me as well. That the goal is to have a kind of both. So because it's always the same kind of packages that I do. OpenStack is made 100% of Python. It's very repetitive, so I try to find ways to automate that process. 100% of the packages of OpenStack are coming from PyPy. It's a requirement. You cannot add a new module if it's not on PyPy. So I created a small script which is called dependencies that downloads the dope.xml from PyPy, extracts information from it using XPath on the command line, and create a small template for me. Then after I have a bit of manual work, so I have to review the Debian copyright, of course. Make sure that there's build dependencies correct and dependencies correct. So I do that by greping the import, basically. And then, because I want to have Python 3 and Sphinx most of the time, but sometimes it's not there, so I just remove it and then manage the test suite, and that's about it. So in roughly about an hour or so, I can have a Python module package working. So you can have a look to that script and customize it the way you want. Yeah, feel free to stop me anytime.
So what's the reason for not doing that work inside the Python modules team?
Because I use Git, and up to 2 days ago we were using SVN. That's why I use a workflow which is different.
Okay. And what's the reason for not using the existing Python helpers? I'm not familiar with Python.
I use the Python helpers.
Okay.
You mean to create the Debian folder?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
There's Python stdep package which probably does what you try to accomplish using this dep py script. It takes a module from PyPI and generates Debian directory from it, so it's already there.
It must be very similar.
Yeah, probably.
Just my stuff. You know, I started to do it like very sloppily, and then it grows, and then I have a script. It's things like that. So once I have that, I use the Git repository from upstream, which I download it from GitHub. Like for 95% of the packages I do, there's a Git repository. So I use the tags from the packages and then just merge the tag or that Git reference. So some upstream don't like me to do that because they say that in their process of doing Python setup.py dist, they do things which I may miss, which is sometimes right, but most of the time it's not. To my experience, if there is such a thing, then I can figure it out. I like this way because it's very efficient. I don't need to even think about a tarball. I know it's there. My Jenkins generates it from Git. I don't need to care where to download it because I already have the Git repository which is defined in my Debian rules file. So I just do Debian rules fetch upstream remote and then it fetches it. I don't have any trouble with pristine tar. I don't have one single branch as well, which is self-contained and have everything. So I'm aware that upstream may not like it, but I find it so much more efficient that it's very hard for me to do any other type of workflow. I will try though to use what we have decided into the Python team and try to push more packages using pristine tar or such in the Python team. We'll see how it goes. So we had the discussion in a place which I can't name about the fact that we shouldn't treat the BTS as a to-do list. I have the opposite mindset. So I try to lower the bug count as much as possible and any way possible. So like if because like I have so many packages to maintain, if I don't do that, then there's just too many bugs to care about, and it's overflowed and I can't manage it. So every 2 to 3 weeks, I try to go through all of them and try to close as many as I can. So in roughly 2 to 3 days, I can kill, I don't know, 20 bugs. So I do some sessions like that, and yeah, for the moment it worked. I hope I won't ever have too many bugs for so many packages. So because I do maybe 4 or 5 new packages new packages in Debian every week or so. I had to deal with the fact that there's a long waiting time in the new queue. I have no magic solution for that. The only thing you can do is just upload as fast as possible. So in Debian, in OpenStack, there's that requirement repository. So it's I update it often, check that there is new things, and try to be as reactive as possible. So I was also insisted upstream so that they don't add too many new dependencies just before the new release. So hopefully I can have them in Debian before the next table of OpenStack is out. The other thing I've been what's the time? So I did lots of Python 3 things. There's a consensus in OpenStack that we want to move out of Python 2, but there's some things that are keeping us there, like memkhd, eventlet, and more. Hopefully we'll be there in a year or two, having Python 3 only things. So like the rest of the Python team is doing, I'm trying to add support for Python 3 in all my packages. So hopefully we'll be there at this point for Jessie +1. Up to now, on all the packages I maintain, I also make them backportable for Wheezy. It means I have Python 3.2 to support, which is kind of annoying because there's all this Unicode thing which is not supported in Python 3. Upstream is not interested in Python 3.2 as well, so I'm pretty much on my own. But I still find it more easy to do it like that. So, for example, for Python Babel, I added a big patch for 3.2. I'll be very happy to drop it as soon as we have Jessie out. But that's a quite bad example because most of the time the patches are very, very small. Maybe a year and a half ago I didn't know about Python 3 at all, and as I'm doing it and I know more and more about Python 3. I still don't consider myself a Python programmer, but I know about them. So here's the kind of cool things that you may find in a Python package. So Python 2.2.1, I've checked on the internet, was released in 2001. And that's still the same kind of things you have to do. So you just remove that, okay. Some things I do in Python packages. So I find out that to do this way is nice because you don't have to deal with the clean target. And here as well, instead of cleaning the egg, which always will have differences with upstream, is very annoying. So doing that is efficient. Like you just add that in all packages and then you're never bothered. I also disable some DH targets to make the package building faster. Yeah, I had to deal with lots of version issues. Upstream sometimes says, okay, there's a package that needs this version or that version, and I just add the patch upstream. And then they reply to me, yes, but in the requirements.txt we have another version. Why do you want to be compatible with that? So I have to explain, teach them that they are not alone in the distribution, that their package must integrate with the rest of Debian. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I have many kinds of reaction, but mostly it went all right as if you take the time to explain to them. One very nice thing that happened is with Python Migrate. So this was maintained by a Debian developer who decided to stop working on it. It has been taken over by the OpenStack community. And support for SQL Alchemy 08 and then 09 has been added to it, so that worked quite well for that package. Upstream has been very comprehensive with SQL Alchemy support. So now there is SQL Alchemy 0.9 support. We have the person who is upstream for SQL Alchemy is now a Red Hat employee, and he's doing stuff specifically to support OpenStack in SQL Alchemy and in Alembic. So the future is bright. And then there's some other issues like Upstream would like to use a new version of jQuery, which is incompatible with what we have in Debian. So they've been very comprehensive too, and they stick with the old version. So there's going to be a new version for Jessie +1, I guess. We are trying to push for Django 1.7. But like with many other packages in Debian, there's issues with it. So we will have, hopefully we will be able to deal with it and have Django 1.7 in Debian. Yeah, so there's a lot of upstream who like to do vendorizing. So the word vendorizing means, yeah, Barry does like that. Yeah, this sucks, I agree. And so vendorizing is a nice way to say I take whichever version of any package and I put it in my source code. So they embed a lot of other projects in their source code and then just release this way. If you do apt file search 6.py, we'll find many versions of 6 in many packages. So we still have some things to address in Debian. Explaining to upstream why it's a bad thing to do it, but it's kind of hard. They always have some wrong reasons to do it, and it has unpredictable consequences. I had one with WSGI intercept, which was kind of funny. First they tried to use Mechanize, which is in Debian and has a lot of embedded other project things as well. So I'm not even sure this one should stay in Debian. But that was dealt with and they removed it. And after, we had a funny issue with request and URL 3. So WSGI intercept is a software that is there to test requests on the internet when you have no internet, so like to do some tests. Okay, so it uses requests, and requests embeds URL 3 in its source code. Yes, Barry?
I think we've unvendorized it. I don't.
Yes, I'm going to it. I'm going to it. You will see it's funny. So in Debian, because we are smart people, we removed URL 3 from requests. This is nice and fine, except that WSGI intercept expected to have the vendorized version of URL 3 in requests. And it took a long time to find out what was going on. So it's a problem, and we have to convince upstream not to do it, because otherwise you will run into all sorts of issues. So I do all. What's the time? So I do all of what I do is backported. I thought about uploading everything to backports, and but it's kind of complicated. So I hope that there's going to be PPA main somehow. Okay, my last slide, and after it's open for questions, is how OpenStack can help Debian. So we had talks about CI in Debian. One of the things we have in OpenStack is that when you send a patch, then you have lots of tests that are done, and then after only the patch is sent to upstream. We could reproduce these kind of things within Debian. So we'll have a Gerrit or another patch review system if you find something better, but I haven't yet. Connected to dgit so that we make sure you have Git support packages. And then somebody would send a patch using Git review. It would be built, tested with pewpart, adequate, and so on. We could even build reverse build dependencies and things like that. Add some specific package functional testing. Then we'd have some review from anyone, not only DDs, okay, that could say, okay, this thing is bad, this thing is good, etc. And then, depending on the ACLs we would have, I don't want to define them because we could discuss about it later, then somebody could approve that change on the package. Then the package would be automatically rebuilt and uploaded to Debian. So where OpenStack could help would be on the build, pewpart, adequate test, and package-specific tests. We could run that on a VM, and it could provide an infrastructure. As a more general, generally speaking, we could provide OpenStack to Debian for our own developer use. And that's it. So, yeah.
Yeah, great talk. Thank you.
one of the things that I run into sometimes are Python packages that are within the OpenStack team, and so I joined the OpenStack team, so I could help out with that. But it seems like it's kind of arbitrary whether some general package is in the OpenStack team or in the Python modules team. And I wonder if we can, maybe not here, but offline, have a discussion about how we can, not divide and conquer, but work together, either have the two teams work together or...
My problem was that I wanted to continue my workflow on Git.
Yeah.
And if that is accepted, I'll move them all to the Python team.
Yeah. So now that we can use Git, I know we have there's some differences around exactly the workflow, but...
Okay, for most Python modules, it doesn't matter much for me if we use Pristintar or something else. What matters is for the bigger projects where you have hundreds and sometimes megabytes of tables, and then it becomes problematic. If it's tiny,
then it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Regarding your earlier question, whether or not we want to keep OpenStack and Debian, I think it would be unanimous hell yeah. And thanks very much for doing that this far. And one more question is, what do you think about packaging upstream master, aka currently Juno, for experimental?
Yeah, so I have that already.
Nice.
But it's not uploaded to experimental. So I always package the beta releases. So I have the latest was B2. So I have B2 currently on my Jenkins repository. So if you want to use that and provide feedback, I very welcome you to do so.
Yeah, the same question, or well, more or less the same thing he just said with my Debian system administrator's hat on. I would like to eat our own dog food when installing the OpenStack cluster, which is planned for the development stuff. So I would like to see the packages in Debian Jessie to have OpenStack packages in Debian Jessie.
Okay. I'll do my best then if there's at least 2%.
So you mentioned using Git to review Debian packages. Have you already done that? So I'm asking because I tried to do that and it works, but it's kind of a mess because Git doesn't deal very well with the fact that in Debian we usually maintain packages with many branches, and it's quite easy to get confused in the workflow because you need to validate to submit commits in a particular order for it not to break.
Which is why I think it should be connected to dgit, because if I'm not mistaken, I never used dgit, but as I understand, it uses only a single branch, right?
I don't know. I've never used it. I used Git with Git build package. So
yeah. So dgit would use only one branch, if I'm not mistaken, and therefore it would be easier. And then we will have a Git repository for all packages by default.
So to clarify, if we do get OpenStack in Jessie, it will be Icehouse, not Juno.
Yes, because Juno will be released in October, on the 16th of October. That would give me like 20 days before the freeze, and if I do that, yeah, no comments. And and also there won't be LTS support for Juno. So I don't want to be on my own for doing the security support. I hope that on the next summit, on the next OpenStack summit in Paris, we will have a discussion with the security involved people, so that instead of giving 15 months of security support, since there are some people interested in doing security support for long term, then we will have integrated security support for Icehouse for like 3 years. So
I don't know if you'd get that officially approved by the TC, but I think probably there are enough different distros involved that we could find the people to do it.
So the consensus was nobody's interested in doing it, but this has just changed. Is there any other question or discussion?
Time is over.
Okay, perfect then. Just on time. Thank you.